All right, everybody, welcome back. I'm so glad that people have come in and joined and watching what we're doing here. I'm talking with one of my favorite friends in the co-living world, and he's actually a friend of mine out there because we spent so much time together anyway. This is my friend, Chris Clayton. I'm Quentin Wendt, and we want to start having open conversations about what's it really like to be a co-living operator in the real estate space. Niche upon a niche upon a niche, okay? We just came up with this idea because we talk almost every day. And we're like, why are we talking in a bubble and the rest of the world doesn't hear what we have to say? Because I think it's magic. And then like we both kind of like love what we're talking about. And we decided the hell with it. Let's just go ahead and share it with the world. Okay. So thank God for social media. We're jumping in. We're going to try to keep you within an hour. Today we got some good stuff. Chris, you want to introduce yourself, where you're from, where you invest?
Sure. Yeah, my name's Chris. I'm from Virginia. I invest all over the country. I do a lot of different things in real estate, but most recently, co-living. I love co-living. It's actually my favorite of the different types of real estate that I do for a lot of different reasons. I'm sure we'll probably get into today. But thank you, Quentin, so much for allowing me to be here, and hopefully I can provide some value.
Allowing you, bro. I'm begging you to be here. What are you talking about? Wait till you just keep coming back, subscribe, do whatever you're supposed to do. I don't even know what all that stuff is supposed to do, but like, wait till we untap what's inside Chris's head. It's gonna be well worth your time and effort, and hopefully we can share some golden nuggets that you guys can use. But let's jump right in. Most of our conversation is going to be about real estate investment because we kind of nerd out about that. But today, let's get right into it, man. Like, we have so many people that have no idea what co-living is. They have their own belief system and their own assumptions. Okay. So for this segment, we're going to be calling it Debunking Co-Living Myths and Challenges. Okay. And we were just talking about this. We didn't really know how to go about it. So what did we do? We used our best friend. We used ChatGPT. All right. So Chris is going to have 3 or 4 things that he's talking about co-living challenges from the member side. And I asked my ChatGPT co-living challenges from the host side. So let's jump right in. Chris, you want to go first with yours?
Sure, absolutely. So one of the things that, and these are all things that we could have thought of ourselves. I mean, we just had ChatGPT kind of organize it for us. But like, for example, one of the things that a member or potential member might be concerned about coming into one of your houses, Quentin, is like housemate compatibility. What if I don't like the people? What if they don't like me? What if, we're not compatible? So, so what systems do we, and when I say we, I mean both PadSplit and we as independent operators, what systems do we have in place to address that concern?
What do you do? What's your favorite thing, your go-to in terms of your number one system to try to address member-to-member friction?
Okay, well, my number one is something I got from you, which is that we immediately screen them for this is a professional community. So, we say, hey, this is a professional community. We all work together. We're all professionals here. If you don't like that, that's okay. There's, 1,000 other rooms here in Jacksonville that you can go to, and there's no hard feelings. You can do that. This is a special kind of community that we use, and we need to make sure everyone is in on this this club, so to speak. So. And we genuinely mean that. None of that is like psychology or anything. We genuinely want professional people in there. So they know coming in, and we tell them that a minimum of 3 times before they get in there. We have the initial screening, and then once they get past there's the PadSplit screening, then there's our initial screening, and then once they get past that, we send them another message, congratulating them on becoming part of our professional community and talking about that. And then as soon as they move in, we contact them again by text and phone. And every single time we emphasize this is a professional community. So, and what that does is if nothing else, many things, but one of the things that sets the expectancy that everybody else is going to be professional too. Like if you told me, hey, I'm going to put you into a room with a bunch of random people, I may or may not like that idea. But if you say, we're going to put you in a room with other professionals like you, I'm excited now. Now I want to go into the room. So I would say that's kind of the number one thing that we do to allay that concern.
100% agree. We share a brain in this way, is that we're not trying to solve, world hunger here, right? We are just trying to solve one specific thing when it comes to co-living. And the thing that we both agree on is set expectations, communicate expectations, and hold people to those expectations. And I think the way we approach it is so similar, is from the listing, the first time you read about my house, all the way through to how I interview you and how I hold you accountable for how you behave. It's the same expectation, right? Us as the host operator, we're consistent. We're just expecting you, the member, to be consistent because we asked you, do you want to fit in here? And the number one thing that I think I reinforce with every single member that we get in our house, listen, we're not for everybody. Just like you said, right? We're for professional community. We're not for everybody. There's so many other choices for you to be. But if you so decide to live here, I promise that I will have a well-maintained, high-quality product, high-quality bedroom, the product that I provide, the service I provide will be high quality. The expectation is that you're going to be the same high-quality member. Love that, right? And I think that's a mixture of like, what's the biggest fear members have? God, I have no idea what's going to be like living there. And then follow that up with, as a host, how do we defend and address that system? So I love that one. All right, let me go into mine. I asked ChatGPT, hey, host side, what's a big problem? Consistent occupancy and tenant turnover. So when I asked ChatGPT, give me 5 of the biggest concerns that I, as an investor looking at co-living, should consider. So, Mr. Chris, consistency and turnover.
Okay, I would say that the question itself implies that you're going to have, the consistency is the number one thing you're looking for. Consistency would be great, but sometimes it'll be higher and sometimes it'll be lower, no matter how good a job you do. So the way I think about it is I try to do the best job I can, and that's screening and taking care of the house and taking care of the people and doing everything I'm supposed to do. And I want to move that average up as high as I can. That's how I think about it. So I don't think in terms of consistency. I think in terms of moving the average upward based on what I'm able to control.
Love that. What about the turnover part?
I mean, there's going to be turnover. Like
yes.
we have turnover, and it's often for good reasons. Like they're like, oh, hey, I got a better job in a different part of the city. And of course, we check to see if we have, do we have a PadSplit over there? And then we can talk to them. But if not, they're like, okay, well, congratulations. We're very glad to hear about how well your life is going and stuff like that. And so there's going to be turnover, and it's not always a bad reason. It's not like we hated your house. That might be what somebody thinks of first, but I mean, or like a potential host might think of first, but that's usually not what it is. I would say that at least 75%, in fact, I'd say probably 80 to 90% of the turnover that we have is because, oh, well, I decided to move back in with my sister because she's in town now, or just random stuff like that have nothing to do with the house or the host or anything. And the people that, if they don't have life changes like that, they usually stay. So, I mean, if I do a good job and I communicate to them and we do a good job of communication and screening and all that stuff, it's usually not going to be any more of a problem than it has to be.
I talk to a lot of new investors, a lot of new co-living investors, and this specific topic comes up a lot because the expectations that they have heard are not real life, right? Their expectations are set upon what they have read, they've seen, they've listened to, and they have looked down on a spreadsheet for the longest period of time. So they underwrote these properties thinking it's a business on a spreadsheet. So when they look at it and I ask the question, what's your expectation for your business? They say $1,000 a month. And I was like, but that's on an Excel spreadsheet. This person's going to stay in these many rooms for 12 months straight. I'm like, that's not real life. Real life looks like your occupancy comes and grows because people are living dynamic lives. So one of the things that I tell them to do as new investors is, instead of thinking about it as $1,000 a month, think about your goal is to get an average of $1,000 a month at the end of the year. Because you may have 100% occupancy and you may have 60% occupancy. Somebody moves out. 70% occupancy, 85% occupancy. And over the course of that year, your job is to buy a property and run a property well enough that you're at the end of the year, if you divide by 12, you're getting as close to that targeted profit number as possible. But that also means you have to control expenses and keep your revenue high. And that's what you and I focus on, is like, how can we consistently deliver a member experience where they want to stay? And I can extend that average, like you were saying, one more month, one more month, one more month. And a lot of it just kind of boils down to, do you ask the question of your clients, hey, how's it going? Is there something that I can improve? Because if they tell you you improve it, they stay. If you ignore them, they give you a move out notice and you're like, what happened? I could have adjusted that. And I think that's one of the biggest learnings for new hosts, is that it's a living and breathing business of dynamic people who are our clients.
Yeah, and can I add something to that? I would say, like, just from kind of a different angle, if we were weightlifting and I went in, and let's just say I don't bench that much, but let's say I'm gonna try benching today, and my goal is 140 pounds. Now, that I don't usually like setting goals like that, like equivalent to someone saying I want $1,000 a month. I don't like setting goals like that because I could far surpass that, and if my goal is 140, I'm going to be limiting myself. Or maybe I can only do like 120, and 140 is just disappointment, and maybe I'll hurt myself. So my goal is, if I'm weightlifting, pay attention to my body, do the best I can, make sure it's safe, and make sure I stretch out and do everything safely, and then do as much as I can. And then, next time I'll probably do even more. So I think the goal should be having the best processes possible rather than making a certain amount of money. So if there's process versus end result, I would say that I think it's always true that if your goal is to have the best processes possible and to always be improving them, then that would be that you will go farther than if you have an end result goal like $1,000 a month.
Dude, that is such a good way to put it. Like, you just put words to something that just makes so much sense when I think about it that way, right? It's like you hear Kobe talk about it, you hear Michael Jordan talk about it, you hear, like, sports is a really easy analogy, but they're like, it's process driven, and the results come from the results, right? But it's the process that allows you to get great at something, and that's awesome. So I love that. All right, we'll do another member and another host, and then let's keep it going. You got one more?
Yes. Okay, so let me go back to that real quick. So another one from the member side would be like noise levels. So are there quiet hours? What if the person next to me is too loud? What if there's someone that stays up all night banging pans in the kitchen? And that could be a potential concern that they have.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have rules to address that, but they don't know that. So that might be something we really need to communicate with them. Quiet hours, this. And one thing that I like to do, and then I'll just say briefly, and then I'll turn it over to you. One way I like to word things, especially after someone has been screened and accepted, I'll usually, like, rather than saying you're not allowed to make noise after 10, I will say something like, we expect, so we have a rule where we don't make noise after 10. So if you hear someone else making noise after 10, let me know. And if I need to talk to them, I will. And then they're like, oh, okay. And then they have pride in the rule, and then they follow the rule. And then, of course, also, and of course, if there is someone making noise, then maybe we do want to talk to them. So just kind of a little thing that I do.
Yeah, it's interesting. The statistic that I share a lot with new hosts, because I speak with so many new ones, and even existing hosts that are experienced. 6 out of 10 members, it's the first pad split they've ever stayed at. Right? Especially if you think about it, like, we're 5-6 years new. Every market we launch into, there may always be rent by the room people, but not like us, right? I've always used a cab or even a hack or something else, and then Uber came along. And I remember the first time that I used the app in the Uber and I got in and all this other stuff. It's the same thing for our model. Our clients, this is the first time they've ever come into a pad split or a shared house in many situations. So not only are we running our own business, but some of that is actually training the new tenant coming in. Like, think about how many people don't know how to use a door lock because it's digital and electronic. They're used to a key, but here we are, boop, 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 and then don't forget the little blue check mark in the corner. So little things that you take for granted, like I'm like, I recognize those locks because I've been to Airbnbs before. And I don't know how many of our members are vacationing in an Airbnb, right? Where they're having to use a digital door code. Like subtle little things that we take for granted. I dumb it down to the point of like, imagine this is the first time you are on this planet and these are the instructions you're going to follow. And that kind of lends itself to the house rules and expectations is you're not the only person I share these rules with. I share them with every single person before you and after you. And it's for your protection and your enjoyment of living here. Is everybody follows the same guidelines. You agreed to stay here with these same rules? Cool. Everybody that comes in after you and before you has agreed to the same rules. And that's what keeps the peace in the house.
You know what would be interesting? And this is sort of tangential, but this is just an idea I just came up with. What if we made like a mobile website for our houses, like, my houses and you for your houses, and we put a QR code up in the living room, and the website has like videos on how to use the washing machine and the locks and everything. So if somebody forgets, they can just scan it and just scroll to it and hit the video. I think I might try that. I think I'll try that and I'll let you know how it goes.
Okay, so this is the beauty of we don't have to be the most original people. We can steal from others. I have a host that does that. He puts a QR code above the lock, which is a YouTube video of how to punch in the code. And other hosts have, because every lock is different. Even if this is my third PadSplit, I could have had a Slodge lock on one, a Yale lock on another, and a Eufy lock on this one, because we don't have a standardized lock system. But that's, again, that's a great answer. The other hack that people use is a Ring doorbell. So instead of having to email and go through the messenger system and wait for a reply, they leave the Ring doorbell and the notes on the move-in say, if you ever have issues getting into the house, just ring the doorbell, and it comes to his phone, and he can verbally talk them through as like the immediate response, because he doesn't want a member stuck outside in the rain at 11 o'clock at night when they're trying to move in. So that was his solve for that. So two good things that people can copy from. Yeah.
I remember it was in one of your meetings that he told you that. I was in that meeting also.
Yeah.
I like that guy. He's a good real estate investor.
Let's go into this one. ChatGPT, tell me about a host. What are some operational co-living challenges and myths? Property management and operations complexity is a reason why people don't get into co-living. Do you agree?
Yeah. That's like, no, I agree with that one. It is more complex than like long-term rental, for example. So now, and here's the thing, when you're, it's chess versus checkers. Is chess more complex than checkers? Yep, it sure is. You don't have to play chess if you don't want to, but if you want the added complexity, and in this case, that there are other benefits to that, generally, like you'll probably create more profit if you do it this way, but it's more complex also. So, it's like, you could get a job, digging a ditch, or you can get a job as a, financial planner. One is going to be more complex than the other, but it's probably going to lead to greater rewards. So it's really, it's up to you. I don't think either one is good or bad. It's just, do you like so one, get familiar with what the co-living specific things are. Talk to people who already have some co-living houses and be like, okay, so how is this different than regular long-term rental? How is it different than Airbnb short-term vacation rental? And then what are the differences? And if you like those differences, or if those differences, now I like those differences. I like interacting with, the members and like, meeting them and like helping them resolve issues, mostly because I've got good systems in place to do that. And I like talking to people in general. And we screen for people who are going to be like professional people anyway. So it's usually a good conversation. So for me, the added complexity is, mostly enjoyable. So I actually, that's one of the reasons I like co-living so much, because I like that added complexity. Now, if you don't, that's totally fine. You don't have to do co-living. You do something else. But you should inform yourself using, people that actually currently do it. Hopefully, if they have multiple houses that have co-living, and ask them, like, what are the differences? What are the challenges? What are the complexities? And then decide for yourself if you like those complexities or not.
Yeah, I Could not agree with more. The thing that I really want to just add on to it is some of the scariest things I ever hear from hosts. They're a short-term rental person, Airbnbs and VRBOs. And they're like, oh, I've got a property manager. I'm bringing him with me. Have they ever done co-living? No, but he does property management. I'm like, oh, sweet baby Jesus. Here we go, right? Because there's a learning curve for not only you, the owner, but the person managing the property. Long-term renters, same thing. Oh, I've got a portfolio of 55 of these things. I do some Section 8. I do some long-term rentals. I got a property manager. Oh, sweet baby. Here we go, right? I have come to the understanding that everything evolves. At one house, property management, people management, one way. In your case, 4 or 5 houses, property management, people management, it's a different evolution of it because it's at scale, right? I can do unscalable things at 1, 2, 3 houses. At 17 houses, you can't do unscalable things to manage. You can do some good things consistently, but some of the little onesie, like I can't go to the house and have an hour and a half, 2-hour house meeting at 17 houses. I've run out of hours in the day. So I need to find some scalable solution to that. If I were to have to give, a statement of truth in all of my experience with co-living, I think our property management, quote unquote, is like 65, 70% people management. Members, like talking to specific tenants and members because there's so many of them, and maybe 20 to 30% asset management, meaning the house, the plumbing, the heating, the doors, the refrigerators, like that kind of stuff takes such a little amount of time. If you do the conversion correctly, it can get even smaller, right? Like over the next 5 years, you're not going to have a roof problem or a leaky plumbing problem or a floor problem. You may have a bug issue, you may have a cleaning issue and a toilet clog issue, but like you can mitigate a lot of that with good conversion. But most of it is people management. So being open-minded as to, like you said, ask people at the same stage or bigger than you how they're finding success, and implementing some of those things and copying it. Copy the best practices. Try it for your properties. It may not work in Jacksonville the same way it works in Atlanta, but the principles are roughly the same. Yeah, property management is not the same as long-term, midterm, and short-term and co-living. It's 4 different ways to manage your asset and your business. So that's a big one. All right. You have one more good one?
Sure, yeah. With as far as myths from members or concerns from members, let's see. So, for example, conflict resolution, who mediates disputes, how are rules enforced, what happens after violations, what if one of the other members is not following the rules? How do I have to handle that myself? Is the host going to handle it? Is PadSplit going to handle it? A member is certainly not going to know. And I'd say a lot of hosts don't even necessarily know, or at least, have a standard plan for it.
Yeah. I don't ever want to be Judge Judy. I just want to have a set of expectations. And I think that's one of the things that I hear a lot of new hosts. They don't know how much is too much, right? It's like they're so involved that they end up siding with one side or another versus siding on the side of the house and the business in general. I think that's one of the biggest learnings that people have to figure out. Everybody has my cell phone number. I'm like, why? Why does everybody have your cell phone number? I'm like, you can find scalable solutions. Get a Google Voice number or get a different way that people have to communicate with you. Like, you don't have to bang your head on the same branches that everybody else does. You know what I mean? Like, just you can put systems in place to avoid a lot of these things. And a big one is like member to member conflict. And a lot of it comes from you did not set expectations going in.
Yep. I really like what you said about you're not on anybody's side. You're on the side of your business, and I've heard you say that before. and I've not heard anybody else say that. So, if two people are having a conflict, you have to really, you're not their dad. You know what I mean? You're the business owner. So, if somebody's doing something that is hurting your business, then they need to stop it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what it comes down to. These are all adults. There's no, they're all adults that are members of PadSplit or whatever. So they need to be able to resolve their issues. And if they don't have that ability, then, they might have to leave just for that reason. Like, it doesn't matter. It's not my job to decide whose fault it is.
Yeah. Nor is it like the platform's job to play cop, to play, the camp counselor. And I think one of the simplest things that I've ever said was the expectations were set that you were going to be respectful to each other in the house. And right now, if you're overriding and you're an overbearing person and you're yelling and causing a kerfuffle, you're disrupting the balance in the house. And again, there's 8,500 other houses and rooms in Atlanta for you to enjoy. But if you want to stay here and get all the benefits of staying here, please act accordingly.
Right. Yeah, you have to, as a host, you should remember that you are, providing a valuable service. And it's, this is, an exclusive community. And, just as an example, last month there was an issue between 3 members. They weren't even breaking any rules that I know of, but they just could not get along at all. And they were just causing conflict among themselves, and they couldn't work it out. So we just asked all 3 of them to leave. And, one of them contacted me after, and I said, listen, I'd rather have 3 empty rooms than 3 problems. So my job is to run this business. I'm not anybody's dad. I'm not anybody's judge. I'm not anybody's probation officer. I am the business owner that operates this asset. And if the 3 people cannot resolve their own issues as adults, then all 3 of them will have to leave. And that's what we did.
I think as a host tip, people don't know because they haven't experienced it yet. If Chris is a perfectly good paying, well-mannered, keeps to himself, no issues member, and I'm a jackhole, I will chase away Chris and I will end up staying in the house. I just keep seeing it happen over and over and over again, where hosts don't want to confront the person that's a problem. So they allow people like Chris, who's a good member, to just move out. And then, Bob in room 2, he moves out. And Linda in room 3, because those people who are just kind of quietly going about living their life, they don't want to deal with the jerk in room 4. So they're take the easiest path of least resistance, which is I'm going to transfer to another PadSplit. And now I'm the host and I'm left with me, a problematic tenant who chased away 4 streams of good revenue. And that's why I always talk about, like, it's a business. Do what's best for the business, even if it's the hard thing. And that's a big one. So, all right. Anything else?
Quick question about that. It was just my lack of knowledge about how PadSplit works. Are you, as a host, let's just say someone is just creating a problem, but they haven't necessarily broken any rules. Is a host just allowed to ask them to leave? Like, can you give someone a notice to vacate and you don't have to provide a reason?
One of the first drop-down reasons is
not a good fit for co-living. Okay.
You can drop down in the list of things. This is not a good fit for co-living.
Okay, right? That's good that reason is there.
Yeah, and I think for any given reason, and you understand that just because I issue Chris a notice to vacate doesn't mean that, like, I'm sending 300-pound linemen to go down there and pick him up and move him out. I still have to abide by, the same housing laws, So we'll get to that in a second. But the reality of it is I have had people leave my house and I've had 0 evictions. And I think a lot of that stems back from how I vet the quality of human coming into my house. They may leave with a balance because they ran out of a job, or they ran out of, got fired, or whatever the case may be, and they were looking for a new job, and I made the decision to allow them to stay and accrue a balance. But once it came down to it, I was like, look, we've come to a point where you're not paying, you don't have the ability to pay. I'm going to issue a notice to vacate, or you can just, move out on your own on this day. And both of them have left on their own. And it wasn't a 4-month drawn out conflict. I'm going to take you to eviction because of the quality of person that I think I vetted on the front. So that's.
Can you imagine being a member and getting an eviction for co-living, getting an eviction on your record for co-living? It's not like you have a year-long, you're like 2 months into your year-long lease and then you get an eviction. It's like you're 3 weeks into your 12-week commitment and you get an eviction that stays on your record for 7 years. Like it's like if your friend lives half a block away and you get in your car and you get a speeding ticket on the way there. That's the level of irony we're talking about.
Yeah, and I like the thing that we're like making fun of and we're kind of teasing on is that like there are some members that are out there that just don't make really good decisions. But I think that's true in all humanity. Like I think about my kids' friends and who I have seen walk through my house. And I'm like, oh man, I wish the best for you, my friend, because you make bad decisions. You're consistently the guy that makes bad decisions,
Everyone wants more motivation, but no one wants to know how to make better decisions.
Yeah, I agreed. All right, that's awesome.
If you make bad decisions and you have more motivation, you'll just make bad decisions faster.
Yeah, my kids, when they both got turned 16, they got their driver's license. Family tradition is you get a keychain, and on of it says "Don't do stupid S." So, and it goes heart, mom and dad. It's like just don't do stupid stuff, man. Like make conscious decisions. All right, so those are fantastic things about debunking some co-living challenges for people who don't understand. I recently read something, and we have about 20 minutes left on this thing, so I want to get into this with you. Okay. I love Charlie Munger, God rest his soul. Okay. And one of the speeches that he's famous for is how do you know how to kill your own business? Do you know how to kill your own business? So attack your business from somebody who's an enemy or whatever, and think about how all the different ways they would kill your business. Okay. So I think about our business, Chris, and our business of being a co-living operator and a co-living investor. You're a co-living investor and an operator, and I'm a co-living operator and investor. How would we kill our business?
Treating it like a long-term rental.
Okay.
We could go through all the steps and like talk about all the way, like from the beginning, like, acquiring badly if you're not good at acquisition, which is tricky. It's tricky to, there's a lot of things that go into acquiring effectively, but if you don't acquire effectively, you're shooting yourself in the foot in the very beginning. And I think you said earlier today, you could be the best operator in the world, but if you don't acquire correctly, you are never going to be, very successful.
Okay. I love that, because again, my role when I work for PadSplit is like, I work with hosts that come to me with portfolios, and I cannot tell you how many properties were acquired poorly. And then they look at and they say, how come it's not making any money? Because there's no money to be made. Your expenses are so high with mortgage and interest rates and everything else, and you don't have enough gross revenue coming in from the members paying rent to make money. Right. And our hope is you can either sell it, you can keep it at a loss, or we can acquire other properties to kind of dollar cost average what you're losing in that property. But number one, don't buy poorly. And if you don't know what poorly means, talk to somebody.
Find someone who does know what that means.
Yes. like have somebody eyeball your deal that has a clue, and don't let it be somebody who's going to make money on the deal. And I say this with like, from the bottom of my heart, don't ask the realtor who's selling you the property, is this a good deal? Don't ask the general contractor you're going to hire to do the conversion on this property, is this a good deal? Because it's absolutely a good deal for both of them.
Yeah, they're going to make money
They're
regardless.
going to make money.
Every single party will make money except for the investor if you buy badly. Like the other people, they can't not make money. Only the investor has the capacity. Only the investor has the ability to lose money on a deal. Everyone else is going to make money.
I coach these students coming inbound, and I'm just like, listen, everybody's your friend when you're the one writing the check. Like, we, the investor who owns the property, doesn't make money until somebody pays us, right? So that means that we have to do all this work. And that's the part that people are like, really? I thought if I just converted it to 7 or 8 bedrooms, I'm just going to make money. I'm just like, where in the world is that business? Because I would put all of my money into that business. You know, in this space, you got to do the work and or partner with great people that are going to do the work for you, and you're going to make a little bit less money, but you're still going to get profit out of it. So cardinal rule, and I'll just share this as a golden little ticket. If 50 to 60% of your rooms doesn't get you to break even, you're going to have a hard time making money as a co-living investor. So that's my 1% rule, 2% rule. When people talk about, like, you know, how do you buy real estate? I call it the 50% rule. So if you're not close to 50% of your doors covering all your expenses, you're going to have a hard time being profitable.
And just to expand on that, the reason he's saying that is because you probably will get 50% occupancy, but you know, there will be times when you maybe have only 60% average over the course of 6 months or something like that. Or maybe it'll be 80 or 90, but you know, you want to make sure that if it's 50, if you have 6 rooms, 3 of them should pay for all of your expenses and your mortgage.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying, right?
I'm saying that.
Then you're safe.
Yes. I'm saying you just want to know where your floor is, right? People that I speak to that are early in this process, this person who sold me this told me PadSplit says that they have 92% occupancy. So I underwrote this property at 8% vacancy. I'm like, really? Oh,
well, and PadSplit says stuff like that sometimes.
I know. And like, because those are facts, right? They'll say we have 92% occupancy. And I'm sitting there looking at it like, okay, I hope to get to 92% occupancy, but what's my worst case scenario? Right? Because every bedroom, and like, you can reverse engineer the math. If you have a 6 or 7 bedroom house, 3 or 4 of them make you break even. That means you only have 2 or 3 bedrooms left to make money. 800, really, 800, 800.
A lot of the markets are, you know, it's like average is 75% occupancy.
Yeah.
And if the average is 75% occupancy, that means 50% of people have lower than 75% occupancy. So if 50 or maybe 60, like, you know, if you need even 4 rooms to break even, you're close to the edge there.
Yeah. Like,
so yeah, 50% rule, I like that.
This is business math, guys. And this is why we talk about it.
Yeah. It's fairly complex trying to figure out what all the expenses are going to be even. So again, it's like, talk to someone who has been doing it for a while and they can provide some guidance for you, you know, pay them, you know, to give you guidance. Yeah. That would be the best money ever spent.
All right. What else is going to kill your business, Mr. Munger?
I actually really like his, I actually looked it up now and I'm seeing like what he's talking about. I actually like his, they're completely different than what we're talking about. He's talking about like having fat, dumb, unmotivated bureaucracy. I actually, like his talk about is really interesting.
I saw the quote is, what do you call it? Leverage, liquor, and lovers. Like, he goes, those 3 things will kill your business. I was like, okay. But leverage, what's that mean to you?
To me, leverage in real estate?
Yeah.
Leverage is probably, to me, the most interesting thing in real estate. And you can really go in a couple of directions. I'm definitely more like on the leverage side. In fact, we could have a much longer discussion about this. But with leverage, you know, if you lever, or in other words, you borrow more, you use more of other people's money to, expand your real estate, then you're really the only downside, look at the downside way ahead of time, is if there is a market crash and your houses go under and people stop paying, has to be that also, like fewer, like if your occupancy goes down and also you can't sell because the price of your house has gone down. That hasn't happened since 2008, but could happen tomorrow. Nobody knows. So the only downside is that if that happens again, then you could be in a lot of trouble. Other than that, everything else about it is an upside to using more leverage. You get more. And there's some subtle ones and there's some really obvious ones, like that you can expand your portfolio. It's more scalable. You can get more cash flow. And then there's some other ones that are less obvious, like you have more liability protection because your properties are more levered up. There's more appreciation capture. Like if you have 5 properties, you're getting more appreciation capture than 2 properties. There's more tax deduction capture if you have 5 properties versus 2 properties. And a couple other like really interesting ones that I don't think hardly anyone's ever thought of is banks and buyers. It's much easier to work with buyers if you're more levered, because you can, there's only a little bit down they have to pay for you to make a deal with them, as opposed to if you paid off 75%, then they have to do it the normal way. So you have more buyers available if you are more levered. Also, banks are more willing to work with. And I'll just leave it on this because we could talk about this all day. But if you're a bank,
oil geyser.
if you're, I love this topic. If you're a bank and you have loaned me money, and I have, let's just say I've paid back the principal, and it's like I have 90% equity in my property, but then for some reason I can't pay or something happens, I need to work with it. You're not going to want to work with me. You'd rather just take the asset because I've got 90% equity.
Yeah.
You'd love to just take that right off my hands, and there's no incentive for you to work with me. But let's just say it's fully levered. First of all, you want it back? Here you go. If it's fully levered, I lose nothing.
Yeah.
If I give it back to them, and they gain nothing, and they have to go through this whole long foreclosure process. Like, okay, foreclose on me. So there's a lot of benefits to leverage, like that's both subtle and not subtle. But again, just to recap on the other side, if things do go sideways and you have a bunch of levered properties and people stop paying and you can't pay for your mortgages, then you're going to have to be robbing Peter to pay Paul and figuring out what you're going to do. And a lot of people did experience that.
So let me summarize all your brilliance up into something a brand new investor will think about it this way. You can't have it both ways. You can't want to burr a whole property out and be like, I want a ton of cash flow. You bought the damn property with no money in it, right? So that means you have a lot of debt. And that means that like the cash flow is capped, and you're not going to get $1,000 in cash flow and have no money left in the deal after you burred out and put leverage or put a loan on it. So it's typically a little bit of a seesaw action. Is if I have a lot of equity and I didn't borrow a ton of money, I can expect more cash flow, and vice versa. If I took out all my money and took out an 80% loan to value loan and the interest rate was a little bit higher, I'm not going to get as much cash flow, but I still own the property with very little money in. That's my benefit. And depending on how much cash flow, I can move the leverage or equity that I put into the house, and that'll move the number on the cash flow side. Like for brand new investors, you can't have it both ways. And if you do, I question the deal a little bit, right? Because it's a unicorn. So that's one of the things that, like, for new investors, how do you kill a deal? Is that you want to take full leverage and you're needing cash flow to survive. That's a problem. All right. What else you got, Chris? Give me one more.
Okay, here's another one. And this is one that Charlie Munger said, also Warren Buffett said a lot, is, and this is totally true. And I've just seen this. I learned about this years ago, and I've seen it to be completely true the whole time. If you follow the herd, you will never be successful, because by the time you start hearing on YouTube that something is happening, everyone who knew about it has already taken advantage of it, and there's little left in there. So there's not much left in the deal once you hear about it on YouTube or from your friends or whatever. So you have to stay on top of what's going on, and you have to have a good education about how money works, how the economy works, how the real estate market works, and you need to see that stuff ahead of time. But again, this is not me. This is Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger says. So if you oh, and what do you say? Buy when there's blood in the streets. So when it's like when no one else, when everyone's afraid to buy, all the times that are best to buy. I'm not saying every time people are afraid to buy is a good time to buy, but I am saying that every time that's been the best time to buy have been times that people were afraid to buy. So don't be afraid to go against common wisdom, but you have to educate yourself first so that you can make good decisions when that happens.
Oh, that's so good.
It's
so
classic. Yeah. Classic Warren.
Yeah. So the first part you said, be a bit of a contrarian, right? And like real life example for those that are wondering, Airbnb. If you got into Airbnb fourth quarter of 2024, you're probably not doing so good, right? But if you got into it in 2017 and 2018, you came out of a terrible economic crash. Real estate was relatively cheap. You get into this new thing. People were making money with cereal and an air mattress. That's like the origination story, right? And now there are $3 million Airbnbs with saunas, and now they're selling masseuses and service to go along with it. But like, you might be a little bit late. In our world, that's why I get so juiced up about co-living. Like Chris, when we first started, people were calling this different things: SRO, single room occupancy, rent by the room, co-living, shared living. Like they didn't know what to call it. Right. And I even went to Google and I'm like typing in SEO search criteria for what people are calling what we do as a business. So when there's a multiple people don't even know what to call it, I think, and we have strong conviction, you and I as investors that are doing this, we think the opportunity is on the beginning side, right? We're paddling into the wave.
Right. And I actually think this is a great time because it's still new. It's still not widely accepted, but it's gotten kind of legal footholds. So we're not coming in at the very beginning, not that you shouldn't have, but I know some hosts that came in at the very beginning and they had a lot of issues, and they have issues today based on that because they're still doing it the same way sometimes. But then we got some legal footholds, we won some legal battles, and now there's precedent. But still we're still kind of in the early stages, and it's still definitely needed. Like there's this missing middle where there's a fairly large gap in between people who are on like Section 8, for example, or they're on welfare, and people who can actually rent their own apartment. There's like a large gap of people in there that don't have anywhere to go, and they're having to stay with their friends or whatever. They want to go have a level of independence that shared housing would provide. So I think this is a good stage to get into because it's relatively safe legally, at least in some parts of the country. And but still the need is huge. The need is still getting wider. And despite the fact that some areas in the country are overbuilt, we still are underbuilt by millions and millions of units. So we're still definitely underbuilt as far as housing is concerned. So, and I remember hearing from the partner, one of the partners at my law firm that I work with, and he said, even if we built full tilt for the next 10 years, we would still be millions of unit underbuilt. Like we can't catch up. Like we are not catching up with our housing needs anytime in the next 10, 15, maybe even 20 years. So this need will be here. This need for these people in between that can't go either way. And I personally think that that's going to be getting wider. Like one more thing about this, if the economy, we're in this great middle place where if the economy gets better, people will move up to us. And then also just kind of a little tangential issue, if the government does something where people are limited on how much Section 8 they can get, those people are going to have to move up to shared living. And then the other thing is if the economy gets worse, people that are just barely able to rent now will have to come down to us. So we're kind of in this middle zone where we're protected based on whether the economy goes up or down. So this need will always be here, at least for a long time to come, and probably forever.
So I love where your head goes, Because I think for every investor, you have to have built reasoning why you want to put hundreds of thousands of dollars investment into this exit strategy. And all the things that you said, they just identify every check mark in your head that confirms why you have conviction about co-living. I go back to the very original question, right? It says, Charlie Munger, what will kill my business? And you said, hey, we're actually getting more foothold legally. I think it's the opposite, or a little bit opposite. If the government comes in and says, co-living's amazing, go at it. It's fully legal every single where, unlimited. I think BlackRock, Tricon, like all these companies that own tens and hundreds of thousands of rentals, tomorrow they make them co-living because they make more money. And they're in the process of returning dollars back to their investors, right? So now I'm competing against 50,000 units in my market because they start converting those.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. And my reasoning for that, the reason I think that they're not going to do that is because long-term rental, which is what they get it for, and selling and long-term rental is much simpler than co-living. They would need the infrastructure to support like BlackRock buying a bunch of shared housing simply does not exist.
Yeah.
Like they don't like it's more complex, taking care of a co-living house than just, okay, here's your lease, I'll see you next year. Not to downplay that, there's more complex than that, but certainly co-living is more complex, and the infrastructure does not exist for BlackRock to swoop in and buy a bunch of those. Or, create
I said that. I believe it. I don't disagree with what you're saying, but those bad boys were in multifamily for decades. And then all of a sudden they got into single family, and single family is way more complicated than multifamily. Right. And then we're just the next layer in, but is the juice enough at 2 to 3 times X?
It's a big layer. It's a bigger layer. I don't think I think it's a bigger step from single family to co-living than from multifamily to single family.
Okay.
Like it is a step, but I think it's a much bigger step. I think there's a lot of insulation there.
I hope so.
I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think they're going to do that. Like, bookmark this video and we'll see. 5-10 years later, we'll see who was right. I'll keep my position on that.
4 years from now, I'm going to be like, hey, I'm on BlackRock split, and you're still on PadSplit. So
BlackRock
maybe
split.
Who knows? But you have to have conviction as to why you want to do it. That's the bigger one, right? Like, believe what you're doing and be intentional about what you're doing. I think that's the biggest thing that I think when I think about, like, why am I going to be successful? I love your contrarian idea. If everybody else is taking the default settings, I'm going to try something a little bit different. Right?
Yeah. I mean, if you do something that's more complex, you're automatically decreasing how many people you're competing against. Kind of like what you were talking about with like BlackRock, So it's like, if you're only if you're only just good enough to do well at long-term rental, then great, stay at long-term rental. But if you can handle more complexity and you're good at that, and you're good at the co-living things, really, I would say if you like the co-living challenges, then go with that. And there'll be, you're not competing with as many people. And what that's going to translate into when you cut through all that is you're going to get better deals on houses. You're going to be able to buy houses that long-term rental people can't afford, because they're not going to be able to, their business model is not going to underwrite for what mine can. So I could buy almost anywhere in my market. I don't even have to get a great deal. I do make sure I get a great deal, but even if I didn't get a great deal, I know it would be a good enough deal that I'd be able to profit and move on and get another one.
That is such a good point, Chris. In real estate, you could be a realtor or a wholesaler and acquire better. You could be a general contractor and convert cheaper. And in our world, you could be a better operator and make more money and still acquire. So like all of these are different skills that open the lens of property acquisition. To your point, it's like I could get away with an okay deal and then balance it out with an amazing deal, but you can still keep adding to your portfolio versus I only have to find this 200 square foot, because I only know how to do it one certain way. I think that's really intelligent. All right, that's my duck quacking.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to, I've got a lot of friends who do long-term rental also, and they might look at 30 or 40 houses and go visit them and look at them before they find one that will pencil in for their model. So it's, it's definitely, so it's more complex in some ways, but it's much easier in what I would say are more important ways.
Yeah, I love that. All right, my man, wrap it up. That's such a, I can't get over how fast time flies when I start talking shop with you. It legitimately, barbershop time. All right, I look forward to next time. Hey, come back, join us next time. And
I would love to.
That's awesome.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, man, what are you talking about? It's yours and mine anyway. So
I love it.
Love it. Chris, I'll talk to you later. And see you next week. See you, buddy.
All right, see you next week. Bye.